and we'll begin the candidate forum in just a minute. I invite everyone to please take your seats. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Cardinal, the president of the Interschool Council PTA. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to our candidates for being here this evening. We're excited to get the evening started, so I'd like to introduce our moderator, Anthony Cruz from the Nassau Regional PTA.
Thank you, Michelle. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Cruz, and I am your moderator for this evening. I am a member of Nassau Regional PTA, and I am joined by my colleague, Paul Barsky, who will be our timekeeper for this evening's forum. To get my notes in here. So the forum procedure for this evening, which all of the candidates have agreed to. For opening statements, each candidate will have 3 minutes for their opening statement. And we will start with the candidates in alphabetical order by first name. For questions, the questions will rotate according to alphabetical order by first name, starting with the second candidate, and will continue through the order. For the question after that, it will start with the third candidate and continue through the order, and will continue in such an order until the last question. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. The last question will be read at or around 8:10 p.m., and we are scheduled to conclude at 8:30 p.m. For closing statements, candidates will start the closing statement in the opposite order of the opening statement and continue in the reverse order. And each candidate will have 2 minutes for their closing statement. And here are the rules for during the question and answer period. I, as your moderator, will have sole jurisdiction over the proceedings now that the forum has been turned over to me. Only residents of Valley Stream 13 were able to submit questions. Questions were submitted in advance via email before this forum, and index cards are available in person for attendees to submit questions as well. Questions have been screened by me to avoid duplication, irrelevant or otherwise non-answerable questions, and questions may have originally been directed towards one candidate. However, each candidate will have the opportunity to answer each question. Cross-discussion will not be permitted, and all participants, candidates, and attendees alike will exercise respect and civility. At any time, if there are outbursts, cross-discussions, or disruptions, the forum will stop and continue only once order has been reestablished. Absolutely no individual, teacher, staff, administrator, parent, or student's name may be mentioned at all during the forum, with the caveat that the superintendent may be mentioned, but only in a professional capacity, not a personal one. No campaign literature may be distributed during this forum. No electronic devices, such as, but not limited to, laptops, smartphones, or smartwatches may be used by candidates during the forum. There are no absentee candidates this evening. And the timekeeper, Paula, will hold up signs when 1 minute, 30 seconds remain, and a stop sign when time is up. While speaking, when the timekeeper has notified the candidate that the time is up, they will be permitted to finish their sentence, but they will not be able to begin a new one. Finally, please note, as per federal and state laws such as the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and others, this legally bars interviews from asking questions about race, sex, sexual orientation, religion, age, national origin, marital status, or family members. Are there any questions about the rules for tonight's forum? All right, thank you. With that, I would like to introduce our candidates and allow them to begin with their opening statements. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for their opening statement. Andrew, when you're ready, your opening statement.
Just push the button, okay, thanks. Good evening, everybody. My name is Andrew Scrow, and I'm running for the Board of Education again because my family's been a resident of the district for multiple generations. My dad was a graduate of Wheeler and Central High School. My three brothers and I were graduates of both Willow Road and North High School. I have a niece and nephew that attend Deaver. And after I met my wife, who graduated from Valley Stream South, we decided to stay in the community and raise our three children in the district. My youngest will be attending Howell Pre-K in the fall, and our two oldest currently attend Willow Road. This year I was honored to be endorsed by our teachers in the same district that I received my academic foundation that's enabled me to be successful later in life. I'm currently one of the youngest audit partners at a top 50 accounting firm in the United States. You know, a significant part of my job is budgeting, auditing, communication, and collaboration. And I think those are the assets I can bring to work together with the rest of the board to advocate for the community. I think the most important part, if elected to the Board of Education, would be to advocate for all of the students, all of the parents, teachers, and families in the district. And I think with my professional expertise and strong roots in the district, I hope to receive your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Anthony, when you're ready, your opening statement.
Yes, my name is Anthony Benelli. I lived in the district for over 30 years, 35 years. All five of my older brothers and sisters have all attended Wheeler, Memorial, Central, and they went on to higher degrees. One's an attorney, and two of them are engineers, as well as I. I hold a master's in business administration. I was shocked to discover when I first got on the board that I'm the only one who has an MBA. I have a degree in engineering, a Bachelor of Science in Engineering. Out of the 30 years I had in the computer industry, 15 of those have been in a managerial position where I rose to the director level. And I think that experience is very important because I was involved in multi-million-dollar projects where I was project manager. And just to be serious with what we're dealing with tonight and the future is a budget of $67 million. So I think we need people on the board that have experience with that kind of a background. I'm going to be very specific tonight with what my goals are. So the voting public, the families, and the residents can actually hold me in comparison to my challenger. Specifically, I want to deliver pre-K locally to all the local schools. I did that for kindergarten. Before I got elected, I campaigned for kindergarten to be returned to Wheeler in its absence for over 29 years. I'm very proud of that, working with my trustees to get that done in my first year. I do want to make corrections. I may not have an opportunity to do it later, so I want to bring it to everyone's attention right now. Specifically in the budget material that's being given out by the district by Superintendent LaRocca, I had corrected her when she made the presentation to the board a month ago, but she continues to have materials being presented to the public, and even on the website today. She's claiming that 53% of our students receive transportation services. That's incorrect. If you go to my website, apvvs.org, I have all the facts and the figures posted there regarding other issues I'm going to be bringing up. It might shock the public to know that there's actually a policy, 2111.1, that prohibits a trustee from visiting the schools. One of the primary responsibilities of a trustee is to oversee the management of the school district and, of course, the budget, $63 million budget. But that policy that I referenced, 2111.1, it's called the board member school visits. It specifically states an individual board member has no right to make an official visit to the schools for the purposes of inspecting the schools, gathering information. The individual board members' rights are no greater or different from those of any other individual. That's patently false. No other resident in the District 13 can actually vote for the budget, approve of a budget within the school district as a board policy member. No other resident can actually hire the superintendent. But here we are prohibited in this board policy that was created 14 years ago in 2011.
Thank you, Anthony. Your opening statement?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Gianti, and I am actually a 13-year resident of Valley Stream. I actually grew up in Connecticut, and I received a public school education. And then after I graduated from high school, I relocated to New York and pursued my bachelor's degree at Hunter. And then I actually went on to get my doctorate in physical therapy, whereby I have my kids here. I have a 4th grader currently at Deaver, and I have an 8th grader at North. When I'm not participating in the PTA, I'm actually volunteering my time with the American Physical Therapy Association. I'm an active member. My goals for the district for this 2024 year is I want to make sure that our kids are getting what they need in this district. I grew up in public school. I got a very good education. I was grounded and I was provided with all the resources that I needed, and I feel that our kids are not getting that same education. My parents are immigrants from Guyana, and they worked very hard, and they instilled in me to work hard, to get an education, to just provide for better opportunities. Going forward, my goal is basically to ensure that our taxpayer dollars are being used appropriately for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, on the right.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sarah Sabatino, and I'm honored to sit here before you tonight as a candidate for school board trustee. I'd like to thank the Interschool PTA for hosting tonight's event, our moderator, timekeeper, and everybody watching in person or at home. So who am I? I'm not just a candidate, but I'm a member of this community, a parent, a small business owner. With a background spanning various educational roles, from classroom teacher to instructional coach, I can bring a wealth of expertise to the table. But more than just qualifications, I'm a parent first, and I'm deeply invested in the success of the district. My 2 sons, who are both 3rd-generation Wheeler Avenue students, have walked the halls of our district schools and have been able to experience firsthand a fantastic learning experience and an inclusive environment. Fun fact, my youngest was part of the inaugural pre-K class at Howell. Then he was at Willow for kindergarten, and now he's at Wheeler. So we've been around the neighborhood. But why am I running? I'm running because I believe in the transformative power of education, and I'm a fierce advocate for our children and community. I believe that our schools are more than just buildings, and they're a vibrant place where every child should feel valued, supported, and inspired. I support fostering a nurturing, safe, and inclusive environment. However, I understand that decisions for the future of our district are not made by individuals alone. I believe in collaboration and working together to find consensus so that the strong school board, together, we can make the best decisions for our children and community. So in conclusion, I'm committed to serving as a dedicated advocate for all stakeholders, especially our children. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for this opportunity, so you can learn a little bit more about me tonight. And thank you for taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Sarah. And candidates, thank you for your opening statements. We will now begin the questioning period. And to maintain a sense of equity, I will repeat the question before each candidate is prompted to answer. The first question, and we will begin with Anthony when you're ready. Do you support District 13's proposed operating budget and capital reserve propositions for the 2024-25 school year? Explain why or why not.
I do not support the budget. Dr. LaRocca, the superintendent, presented her budget several weeks ago, and she was expecting 13.5% state funding. And in fact, the following week, after she made her presentation and repeats it, the New York State budget passed, and they're allocating a 15% increase. I asked Dr. LaRocca, is she going to reduce the requested budget in light of the fact that we're getting a whole lot more money from the state? She refuses. She's going to take the extra money and put them in the general fund, which means there's more money for her or for the district to spend. And I want to clear up a little misnomer here. This is the superintendent's budget. The superintendent's budget. It's not the board's budget. The superintendent presented the Board of Trustees like they do in 24 and 30, weeks before it gets presented to the public. So in other words, the trustees are supposed to put an evaluation of literally hundreds of budget items to decipher, what's going on here, where is the spending. And I'm confident that we're over budgeting, and past experience is prologue. We constantly left over with extra tax money that doesn't get spent, and it gets put into the reserve funds. We have $13 million of unspent tax money in the reserve funds that could have helped our children get past this educational gap that still lingers on our children.
Thank you. Gianti, do you support District 13's proposed operating budget and capital reserve propositions for the 2024-25 school year? Explain why or why not.
So I do support the budget. The reason why I support the budget is it does allocate, it does present the needs that the students need. Now with Trustee Benelli, he indicated that yes, we did get additional funds. Okay, we got additional funds. Being on the board will allow us to say, hey, how can we use these additional funds? It's not to put it in the reserve. We as trustees need to know, hey, we got these additional funds, how are we going to use it for the students? It doesn't go into a reserve, it doesn't go into, hey, let's just use it for something. At the end of the day, the money was given by the state, we need to use it for the children. And that has to be relooked at, and it has to be in collaboration with everybody to say, how are we going to utilize the money? Downing the budget is not going to change or limit what we're going to do for our students. At the end of the day, it's our job to make sure what we're approving is going to be in the best interest of the students.
Thank you, Gianti. Sarah?
Yes.
Do you support District 13's proposed operating budget and capital reserve propositions for the 2024-25 school year? I'd explain why or why not.
Yes, I support the district's budget for the 2024-2025 school year. I think it brings a lot of really important things to the table for our students. It will include creating a district mental health team. I know social emotional concerns are very near and dear to the hearts of the parents in the district. So I think that ensuring that there's a team to help make sure there's equitable access to resources for mental health across the district is important. Student clubs are really exciting. It's something that our students enjoy so much beyond the school day, and it's a place where a lot of our students shine if they may not shine inside the classroom. And this allows for student clubs and assemblies, and it will maintain the current class sizes. I know class sizes is a hot topic, and that's something that is really important to me, that we're not going to have to increase class sizes. And one thing that I'm really excited about personally is the roof repair at Wheeler, because our children have a leaky roof in the gym. And as somebody, a parent who's come to see my child for the Wheeler Hockey League after school, I'll be happy to see them not have to shuffle around buckets collecting water. So I think that, yes, I am definitely in favor of the budget.
Thank you, Sarah. Andrew, do you support District 13's proposed operating budget and capital reserve propositions for the 2024-25 school year? Explain why or why not.
Yes, I do support the budget. I know some of the other candidates have touched on all of the really great programs that come with passing the budget, but some of them we didn't touch on are the inclusive special ed programs, investing in security in the district with the hiring the district-wide director of security. And as far as the capital budget, yes, I think we should be constantly investing in our buildings. I think that's a good thing. Whether it be the library at Howell. From watching the meetings this year, I know that one of the concerns also coming up is the ball fields at Wheeler. You know, we should constantly as a board be looking at ways to reinvest in our buildings, fields, our infrastructure. So yes, I do support the capital budget and the operating budget.
Thank you. Our next question. Over the past 5 years, on average, students with disabilities make up 13% of District 13's total student population. How do you intend to keep students with disabilities as a part of the conversation in all aspects of decisions being made for District 13? And for that question, we'll begin with Gianti.
So I've actually, this year, DVR, there was a big change. We actually did see a big increase in our students with special needs. What we plan to do, for me, if I'm elected on the board, is I want to make sure that these students that are coming into our district, and I'm thinking as a physical therapist, are we providing all the services that they need? Because just to take them in and say, hey, we were given money by the state, and hey, we are providing these services, is it adequate enough? These kids that are coming into the district need a lot. They are really low functioning students. They're nonverbal. They need OT, PT, ST. And we brought these students in. Did we hire the appropriate staff to meet the needs of the student? This has to be an ongoing collaboration. We have to be fluid. We have to make changes on an ongoing basis. We can't just bring them in and say, hey, this is what you're gonna get, and just leave it as is. Every student deserves to get what they need. That's the bottom line. Whether they're special needs, whether they're inclusive, whether it doesn't matter. We as a district need to do what's right for every student, and we need to figure out ways to do it. It's hard because as a therapist, I deal with patients all the time. Every patient is different. I can't treat every patient the same way. I have to be creative in finding ways to deal with it, and we have to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Sarah? On average, 13% of the total student population at District 13 is composed of students with disabilities. How do you intend to keep students with disabilities as a part of the conversation in all aspects of decisions being made for District 13?
I think, first of all, it's very important that we remember that there are federal and state guidelines mandating certain services for students with disabilities, and we also have district policies as well. So it's really important, as a first step, that we take those things into consideration, and not in consideration, but we make sure that we're enforcing, the laws and our policies so that all of our students have what they need. I've been a big fan of our ICT program. I think it's been excellent. My sons are both in ICT classrooms right now for different reasons, and it's been a really great experience for us. I think making sure we provide access to instruction for all children is really important, and making sure that our staff has the training and resources necessary to do that successfully. And I want to make sure that in addition to having that fair and equitable access, at each building, I want to make sure that it's district-wide, but just making sure, most of all, that every child has the supports that they need, and understanding that it looks very different for each child.
Thank you, Sarah. For Andrew? On average, 13% of the total student population is composed of students with disabilities. How do you intend to keep students with disabilities as a part of the conversation in all aspects of decisions being made for District 13?
So I think, as a board member, your responsibility is to continue to work with the rest of the board, right, and communicate. And when you start to talk about students, every student is different, equality versus equity, and every student in this district should be provided for based on their needs. So I think communicating with the board, making sure the budget provides for all of these different programs that we talked about that would support children with disabilities and special needs. And as a board member, we would have to work together to make sure that all of these students are provided for.
Thank you, Andrew. And Anthony? On average, 13% of the total student population is composed of students with disabilities. How do you intend to keep students with disabilities as a part of the conversation in all aspects of decisions being made for District 13?
Back in the 1980s, a gentleman named Linus Pauling, he won 2 Nobel Prizes, one in chemistry, and he came out with a book talking about the recommended daily allowance of vitamins. And this is in the 1980s. He was a big vitamin C proponent. And one of the main thrusts of what he was saying, not so much the vitamin C, but the main thrust was, these are the minimum requirements to have a healthy life. One of his main points he was trying to make was that we should be doing more for your daily living. You should maximize. I looked at that as a model for treating our special ed children in our district. 13% of our population are special ed. We need to not just to meet the bare minimum dictated by the federal and the state mandates, but we need to do better than that. Just like the other students, we just want to just keep, the status quo. We want to be able to educate our children as well as the other school districts, like in Jericho, like in Garden City, like in like other districts that have proficiency levels at the 80% level, where Newsday a few weeks ago reported that District 13 students have a reading comprehension level of only 52%. That's 48% of our children are not reading at proficiency. That's failing. So this special ed population is even more needy, as candidate Ms. Singh brought out. They need more attention. Their needs are very demanding, more than other students. So we need to allocate more resources. And the district, I'm proud to say, has provided increased funding. But we also need to provide more than just a mandated state and federal if those students are going to achieve their best outcomes in life.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Sarah answering. How would you intend to address the issue of increasing class sizes in District 13?
I think that we need to examine the current policy and make sure that it is in line with what we believe our students and the community needs. Research has shown that small class sizes, it's a benefit to all of the children in those classrooms. It leads to better relationships between students and teachers, and there's overall higher academic performance. With that said, it's really important that we have, an open, realistic conversation about it. My two children are currently in Wheeler, so, that's just where my mind goes. And if we were to decrease the class sizes, I'm not sure exactly where we would be putting the children. There are building constraints, so that's something that would need to have a deeper conversation about. And so while I am a very strong advocate for small class sizes, I think that it needs to do this on a district level and enforce a policy with lower numbers than what we have currently. We need to make sure that we're allocating our resources appropriately and be proactive, because there will be a lot of logistical challenges involved. Also, there would be budget constraints, because if we have smaller class sizes, we're hiring more teachers, obviously. And so, the budget would have an increase because of that. But I think that there's, a balance between supporting the small class sizes and making sure our students have access to, more individualized instruction. But to keep in mind, the logistical and physical space constraints that we have.
Thank you. Andrew, how would you intend to address the issue of increasing class sizes in District 13?
Well, it's extremely important that we do whatever we can that's humanly possible to keep classes at a healthy size that are, I think right now they're about 20, 21 students. So, as was previously stated, research has shown that smaller class sizes are more beneficial for learning. But to try to get around some of the increased enrollment, we should also be talking to our teachers. One of the things that I found out through this whole process of becoming involved and running again is that we don't talk to our teachers enough on what's working in the classrooms, what's not working in the classrooms. We should be talking to them. I mean, they're the ones, as the demand and the stress increases, they're the ones that are teaching our children. So we need to be communicating with them better and more often. But yeah, if I'm elected, anything that we can do to limit the class sizes and give the teachers and the students a healthy learning environment, that's what we need to be doing as a board.
Thank you. Anthony, how would you intend to address the issue of increasing class sizes in District 13?
Well, I can tell the voting public, and especially the parents with children in schools, you don't do it by destroying 2 classrooms at Deaver. There will be 3 trustees on the board starting July 1st, 2024, that voted for the destruction of 2 classrooms at Deaver, so that the superintendent can have a private office with a toilet, as well as the other assistants having their own offices, and a private conference room, and a private lunchroom, and a private entrance to that building. So there's an inherent contradiction when a trustee says they're all for a smaller class size when in fact they voted for the destruction of 2 classrooms. Furthermore, I mentioned earlier in my opening statement, policy number 2111.1, prohibiting a school trustee from going inside our schools and inspecting them, just to provide their function, their oversight function. That's so mind-boggling. We recently learned in Newsday that our high schools have 130, our Central High School district has 137 health violations, the second worst in Nassau County of 50 school districts. I'm being prohibited from going inside the schools. I did check out the schools, all 4 of them, Howell, Wheeler, and Deaver, and Willow. And I was able to discover some crazy things. I mean, an obvious health code violation is that 3 of the schools they dump the garbage on the platform. They have a shed that they just dump the garbage bags, and the doors are not locked. You go right now tonight to Deaver, in the back of our school, you'll see that there's an open garbage on the floor in a shed. Because of my criticizing of that, bringing it to the board and the administration, they now are going to have Town of Hempstead have dumpsters at those 3 schools starting next year. Furthermore, I found sidewalks that have tripping hazards that was obviously in existence for years. That finally got resolved. I had a guardrail and crosswalks installed in an adjacent intersection. I would be very shocked not to be able to find classroom space to diminish the number of children per teacher, specifically the boardroom. Anyone who goes to these boardroom meetings knows that we have them into the auditorium. We have a room next door that can be easily converted into a classroom.
Thank you. Gianti, how would you intend to address the issue of increasing class sizes in District 13?
So when I hear the question, it's addressing the class sizes. So ideally, I've had parents come up to me and they said, oh, we got a new student, the teacher's stressed out. For me, if I become elected, you really have to address what's going on in that classroom. So yeah, to say, hey, let's say a standard class should have, every classroom should have 18. What type of students are making up that class of 18? Is it students that are all independent learners, no behavioral issues? Are there students that are all special needs? Because a class size of 18 is very, very hard to just commit to. But if being on the board, what I would do is, I would basically say, hey, let's speak to the teachers, let's see what's going on. Maybe they need extra staff. Maybe they need 2 teachers in that classroom to help make sure that those students are not falling through the cracks and they're getting what they need. My experience at Deaver is that the teachers do advocate, and they do tell the principal exactly what they need. But at the end, is as a board, we have to make sure that every student gets what they need, no matter how big, how small. If we need more staff, we need more staff. If we need to adjust the sizes, we can restructure the classroom, make another classroom. But we have to ensure that no student is left behind. They're all getting the resources that they need.
Thank you, Gianti. Sarah, how would you address the issue of increasing class sizes in District 13?
So that question?
Yes, that's right. I'm so sorry. I have that. All right. For the next question, we'll begin with Andrew. Can you tell us what you would do to ensure that District 13 teachers and staff are provided with a healthy and nurturing environment to succeed in our schools?
Well, I kind of touched on this in the last question, but, as I said before, we're not communicating enough with our teachers, right? So we want to create a healthy learning environment for everyone. And the 2 most important, entities are the students and the teachers. And I think talking to the teachers, understanding what's working, what's not working, and passing the budget and having all these wonderful programs that are in there, whether it be, our before school or after school clubs, our diversity clubs, these are all things that, as a board, we should be communicating and enhancing and continuing to fund. And, you know, as a board member, that's what we should do.
Thank you. Anthony, can you tell us what you would do to ensure that District 13 teachers and staff are provided with a healthy and nurturing environment to succeed in our schools?
Well, I think it's paramount for successful students, you need successful teachers. That's going to require support in their professional development. It's quite obvious, but it needs to be stated. And it not only does it need to be stated, the Board of Trustees needs to institute that through policy, and that needs to be dictated. That needs to be expressed to the superintendent and the administration to make that happen. The teachers are being inundated with year-to-year increases in mandated activities. I have to stress the fact that we have $13 million in reserve funds, $3.1 million in capital reserves. I think we need to use some of that money to convert the boardroom, which is not being used day in and day out. It's only being used when we meet there, but we don't need to meet there. We can meet in the auditorium or in one of the libraries or in the cafeteria. So that's wasted space right now. But again, that policy that I mentioned earlier, that was created back in 2011, policy 2111.1, board member school visits. How can we know the working conditions of the teachers? I know we're in a union environment. All I'm asking, doesn't it make sense that a trustee can just simply, walk through the schools with someone alongside from the administration, but we should be able to inspect? How in the world can we provide oversight of the conditions of the schools? I mean, to this day, I get anonymous letters from the public telling me about things at North High School, telling me about things at Wheeler, like the ceiling in the gym at Wheeler leaks. They got buckets capturing water. When I went to the Valentine's night with the fathers visiting the children, I had to confirm what I was told by one of the parents. And sure enough, we had buckets where water's leaking from the Wheeler ceiling. Now, I do know that there's a capital project to address that. But what's been going on in the previous years? Why do we have $13 million in the reserve funds? That's taxpayer money. So I think a lot can be done to ensure that the health and safety of the staff and the teachers is provided for. But we can't do that if the trustees have to depend on a single source of information, which is the superintendent. And that's part of the problem. The trustees are supposed to tell the superintendent and the administration what needs to be done. But unfortunately, it's been undone through these board policies. The trustees have been usurped. Our authority has been subjugated to the administrator's whims, to the superintendent's whims. That's a fundamental problem with our school district and all the other school districts in Long Island, and in fact in the state, where the trustees no longer have the authority that they're given by the New York State law. I mean, it's really, another policy is the busing policy, where we only require an April 1st letter from those parents who want their children to go to parochial, but the law does not distinguish whether or not it's parochial. It's also public. How do you do budgeting if you don't know what the public wants for the busing to the private public schools? Sorry for overrunning that.
Gianti, can you tell us what you would do to ensure that District 13 teachers and staff are provided with a healthy and nurturing environment to succeed in our schools?
For me, I think there has to be ongoing, I said a minute already? There has to be ongoing collaboration between the leadership, the teachers, and the board. If we don't communicate with our teachers, if we don't get feedback, we can't do better. If our teachers are happy, our students will be happy, they'll thrive, we'll have a positive learning environment. We can't keep taking away, we can't stress our teachers out. We have to make sure they get what they get, they get what they need so that they can do what they're here to do, which is to teach our kids, to make them grow, for them to learn, to flourish and become professionals, and to give back to their community. Our goals are to make sure that our teachers have what they need. They need to get resources, they need computers, they need supplemental material, whatever they're lacking in their classrooms, it's our job to make sure they get what they need so that our kids can just flourish and be better students.
Thank you. And Sarah, can you tell us what you would do to ensure that District 13 teachers and staff are provided with a healthy and nurturing environment to succeed in our schools?
Well, first of all, I believe that teacher working conditions are student learning conditions. And when I think of safety, I kind of think of two different aspects. I think of like physical safety and intellectual safety. So in terms of physical safety, I think that, the Proposition 2 that's up for a vote this year, those safety features, items, increase to teacher safety. Also, the development of the mental health team on the district level, I think, is really important because teachers, obviously, we know they wear a lot of hats, but their job is to teach. And so we want to make sure that we're able to allow them to do that very important job. Also, in terms of intellectual safety, we want to make sure that our educators have the resources that they need and the professional development that they need to implement those resources and make the best learning environment for our students. I know that there's job-embedded professional development because we have instructional coaches in the district, and the Valley Stream Teachers Association has trainees that they offer. They have like a spring and fall catalog. And so it's just really important that we open up those lines of communication to make sure that our educators do feel safe, and that as a board, we work together to ensure that they continue to feel safe.
Thank you. Our next question, which will begin with Anthony's response. How will you prioritize the mental health of students, and what should be done to support them?
So there's a couple of issues surrounding the mental health of our children. First, we do need to provide the resources that are mandated, but there are other issues that come into overlap, and that is bullying, and that's also comes into effect. Bullying can be devastating for a student's learning if the child has all this anxiety of being bullied. But mental health, if a child is suffering from a mental health issue, thankfully we have a psychologist on the district's payroll, and they can assist the child. But it's a critical area that needs to be addressed more fully with support, financial support. Because again, if the child is suffering from mental health issues, there's no way that child is going to be able to, get through his or studies as effective as one without such an illness. So the main thing is having in detail reporting of each of these students and see how they're progressing. And if they're not progressing, if they're still falling behind, we need to provide more services, whether it's reaching out to other locales, Town of Hempstead or the county. But the mental health of the child is, again, just as important as the physical health of the child. And that's the responsibility of the Board of Trustees to make sure. But again, we're relying on a single source of information, Dr. LaRocca. We need these numbers. I mean, the board is very fortunate. We had a new trustee come on board last year, and one of the first things he asked for was other sources of information. And this trustee looked for information from teachers, incident rates of problems, and thankfully we are getting that from Dr. LaRocca, and I do thank her for responding to that request.
Thank you. Gianni, how would you prioritize the mental health of students, and what should be done to support that?
So mental health is actually very important to all the students. If the mental health of our students are not being addressed, then they're not going to perform in the classroom. We have to have an ongoing collaboration with the teachers and even the psychologists. I mean, if a child comes and if a child in our district is receiving services for mental health, there has to be ongoing evaluation to see if we are meeting the needs of that issue and if it's being addressed. Because if it doesn't get addressed, they're going to continue through this district. It's never going to be resolved, and it's going to continue to follow them as they go into the middle school and the high school. So if the buck stops in elementary, we have to catch these illnesses faster. We have to evaluate them. We have to be able to have a plan to treat and assist that student, incorporate the parents, outside resources, the psychologists, mental health, social workers, whatever we can bring into the district to help these students. It's our responsibility to do that. We cannot have them just go through any elementary school, go to middle school and high school, and it was our job, because as a result, we failed them. We really failed them. Yes, we passed them, they got great, they got an education, but did we actually give them what they needed to actually be the best that they could be when they leave this district?
Thank you. Sarah, how would you prioritize the mental health of students, and what should be done to support them?
I think that it's really important that we support anti-bullying programs and make sure we have a lot of policies that are about anti-bullying, and make sure that those policies are enforced throughout the district and that we're promoting a culture of respect and tolerance. It's important that we train our staff and, not even just the teachers, but other staff in the building so that they can identify what bullying looks like and notice if it's, an unkind behavior versus a bullying behavior. I was at a workshop recently that was held at Wheeler, and it was through the Long Island Coalition Against Bullying. It was very informative. I know that they're doing some other work within the district. So bringing more outside resources in like that, I think, is very important. And then obviously advocating for and implementing mental health supports like the district mental health team, and keeping those open lines of communication with that team. And I think most importantly, having a proactive instead of a reactive attitude in regard to mental health. I think that that's really important. You want to make sure that you have policy in place and that everybody understands the measures that need to be taken to ensure that students feel safe at school. And I think that when you give it prior thought, it has better outcomes for the students rather than, reactive to certain situations.
Thank you. Andrew, how would you prioritize the mental health of students, and what should be done to support them?
Well, I think as a board member, we should be supporting programs that teach kindness and empathy to all the students, right? I think we talked about before that not every student is the same. We may be providing everybody the same resources, but not everybody is the same. And I think another part of it is some of these things are in the budget that's going to be voted on next week. I believe in there were additional social workers and psychologists for the district. So that's a huge piece, that's important for the district. And I think as a board, we should be talking together and supporting these programs for our students because it's important. Like I said, not every student is the same. People go through different struggles. Families have different struggles. So we have to remember that when we're supporting these programs, everyone should be included.
Thank you, Andrew. The next question, first response will be from Gianti. What are your thoughts on opt-out?
Okay, so I've had this discussion with multiple parents about opting out your children. I see both sides. I understand there's some kids that are not great test takers, and that's fine. But I do see that this is a way for our state to see that we collect data. It's a form of data collection. It's to show, hey, you know what? Our school is not performing as good as it seems on paper because you only have a select few students who are taking that test. So if we don't get a good representation of all the students taking this test, you're actually doing a disservice to the district because you know what? We're not getting the allotted funds that we should be getting. Because if you have, for example, my son VJ, he's very bright. If you have the majority of those students taking that test, the state will look at the data and say, hey, guess what? This district is doing great. But that's not what's being represented when you come and look at James A. Deaver or Wheeler or Howard, because we have special needs. We have kids that have learning disabilities. We have kids that have reading comprehension issues. We have kids that have that are not at grade level for math. So it's not a true representation of what's in our district. Yes, I understand kids are going to be stressed out with test taking, but that's life. It does, and you know what? Parents always tell me, well, it doesn't mean anything. But yes, it does. Because guess what? That's money that we're losing that we could use for our students. And if we can get whatever money we can from the state, we should take it. It's an advantage. It's an advantage to get our students what we need. We're not here to say, oh, this student did bad, this student didn't do well. That's not what the test is for. The test is to show, hey, are we doing what we need to do for our students? Are our students ready? Are our students prepared? It's just data collection, and it's just a way to say, hey, we need more, and we need to get what we need to get for our students.
Thank you, Jasmine. Sarah, what are your thoughts on opt-out?
I support a parent's right to opt out their child from the New York State ELA mathematics assessment. I believe in multiple measures of assessment for our students. I know that we have the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment system that we're using in the elementary schools now to assess students' reading levels. We have the NWEA, as you know, the benchmark assessment. We have that at the beginning, middle, and end of the year. And then our teachers are constantly collecting formative assessment data. And so I think that we need to use multiple measures in order to assess our students, and I think that that's something that is happening right now. Personally, my fourth grader, he's taken the assessments, but that's just because I'm very curious about how he's going to do. I'm not sure if I'm going to have my youngest child. He's a first grader right now, so we have a couple years to decide. But I don't know if I'll have him take the assessment or not. But I know that it's something that I believe parents have the right to decide. And I think it's important to remember that it's just a snapshot of a period in time for that child. I understand that there's a lot of information that we can learn about the students through the New York State assessments, but again, I believe parents have the right to decide.
Thank you, sir. Andrew, what are your thoughts on opt-out?
Well, I'm not going to tell, like I said before, every student is different, and involved in that are the parents, right? I mean, I'm not going to tell if parents feel strongly that their children should not take an opt-out of the test. It's not the board's place or the district's place to make it mandatory that the children take the test. I know my own oldest son, he hates the test. He took it, he's taken it every year, but he hates the test. He gets stressed out, but he's taken it. So I can understand why parents don't want to have their children take the test, and I don't think it would be something for me to say, okay, well, they have to take the test, it's mandatory. I think parents should be involved, and if that's what they feel is best for their children, then that's the decision that they make for their child and their family. And that's how I feel about it.
Thank you. And Anthony, what are your thoughts on opt-out?
Well, I'm very impressed with Ms. Singh's response. I pretty much concur with everything she stated. I would like to go further, but repeat that I'm for parents opting in. We need to get a measurement. It's just for data collection, and the importance is that if it shows that our children are falling behind, we're open to getting more aid from the state. Opting out is, the parents may feel that their child is disadvantaged in taking the exam, but it's not going to hurt that child. It's going to help. It's really for the universe of students in the district. I'm being tested right now. I have anxiety. I'm nervous. My communication skills aren't the best, but I think my analytical skills are very good. But that may not come through on this Meet the Candidates night. But opting in, I believe, it's very important that we get our share of state funding. And if we're giving a false front to the Department of Education, that hurts the district, that hurts the children. So if things don't sound correct, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. You need to measure the student's ability to comprehend what's before them. And that's the only way the state is going to be able to decide whether or not we need to provide more aid to District 13. As like I mentioned earlier, a couple months ago, Newsday identified District 13 having their children having a reading proficiency of only 52%, where these other schools, Jericho, Mineola, Roslyn, they're at 80%. I mean, that's a 28% difference in proficiency rates. You know, the only way you can measure these performances is you take a metric, you give them an exam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question will begin with Sarah for the response. Each year, Valley Stream 13 appoints 3 members of its board to also serve on the high school district board. What is one specific initiative or priority you would have for the high school district?
That's a really good question. I had the opportunity to hear Dr. Loper speak recently about the Central High School District budget. And there's so many great initiatives that are happening there right now. I think that a board priority should be similar to in the elementary schools, ensuring that our students have the mental health supports that they need. I think about all of the ripple effects that we're still experiencing from the COVID shutdown, and I would want to ensure that there are policies in place and mental health supports to support those students. And then also, I've heard so many really great things about all of the different clubs and activities that are happening in the Central High School District, so I would want to ensure that there are so many children whose school is difficult for, and we want to make sure that they have experiences beyond the school day where they can shine, where they can take pleasure and joy in a different type of learning experience. So I want to make sure that things like clubs and activities are accounted for and part of the budget.
Thank you. Andrew? Each year, Valley Stream 13 appoints 3 members of its board to also serve on the high school district board. What is one specific initiative or priority you have for the high school district?
Well, after reading some of the recent Newsday articles, an exterminator would be very important. You know, I attended Valley Stream North, and to see some of the negative press that's there is, it's a little concerning. I mean, we should be doing whatever we can to make sure that the schools are clean, the cafeterias are clean, where our children eat. All of those spaces should be clean, rodent-free, dropping-free, bug-free. These are our students, you know, the families. You know, the students eat there. So that would be the first thing. But yes, also making sure that all of our clubs are provided for, not just the sports club, but arts, music, sciences. All these things are important to really develop a well-rounded student. So that's what I'd like to see.
Thank you. Anthony? Each year, Valley Stream 13 appoints 3 members of its board to also serve on the high school district board. What is one specific initiative or priority you would have for the high school district?
Well, the easy stuff is like ending the contract, the tents for the graduation. The parents that I speak to, they would like to celebrate their graduation of their child at the schools that they attended for the past 6 years. So the Willow should have their graduation back to what it used to be before COVID. We're a couple of years beyond COVID now. Why are we doing the tent at Memorial? So we need to knock that out. It's $90,000 that we're paying for this tent. The memories were created at Willow, at Deaver, at Wheeler, and at Howell. The high schools are the next is right before they go to college or embark on any professional endeavors the children wish to go through. And we need to make sure that the education that the children are getting are not just geared for a college degree, but also perhaps the child would be interested in going to another venue, like automotive, or plumbing or electrical, and I do see that district, the Central High School is doing that. That Central High School District has made advancements in, for those students who do not wish to go to the academic route. So that's something I would like to. But one of the primary thing I'd really like to expand is the AP classes for the students. Not only is that great for the advanced students, but it's great for the parents. They save money on their college costs. So I'm for expanding the advanced classes, the AP classes. And that's basically it. I'm sure there's a lot more. I did go to the board meeting last night, and unfortunately, the 9 school trustees went into a closed meeting to address the 137 health violations that Newsday reported just recently on. And one other thing I'd like to note is the busing. The vast majority of the media reported on the raping of a child, the alleged raping of a child, but that would have been prevented if there was background check on that driver. Because that driver actually lost his job at the corrections department years earlier for having a sexual relationship with a 16-year-old. So busing is a huge issue.
Stop.
And Gianti?
Oh my God.
Each year, and I'll remind the audience to please remain silent as well. Thank you. Gianti.
Yes.
Each year, Valley Stream 13 appoints 3 members of its board to also serve on the high school district board. What is one specific initiative or priority you would have for the high school district?
So, I've had experience because I have my 8th grader who transitioned from Deaver into North. The transition was not an easy transition. I feel like the students that are coming out of 6th grade are not prepared for 7th grade. Not academically, because like we mentioned before, every student is different. But as crazy as it sounds, my son had a hard time with organizational skills, with study skills, with note-taking, test-taking, being organized, changing classes on a timely, going from one class to the next, adjusting. Because when they transition to North, they're treated like high school students. That's not how they transition from Deaver. At Deaver, it's nurturing, their baby. They're told what to do. They're given reminders. When they go into North, it's a rude awakening. So we need to have a better transition period or come up with collaboration between the 6th grade teachers and the 7th grade teachers to come up with a way that these kids can transition better and know what to expect when they get into 7th grade.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll begin with Andrew. What level of importance should the board place on recruiting, hiring, and retaining a diverse teaching staff? What would you do or advocate for as a board member to approach this issue?
Right, so that's one of our main responsibilities as a board member, is to hire staff. And I think when we're interviewing candidates, we want to hire the best staff possible for the entire district, including diversity, but really the best teachers, administration for our children. That's one of our main responsibilities as a board member. So we should be vetting any new hires. We need to be vetting, interviewing, and making sure that we're getting the best candidates into our district for our children. It's extremely important. It's one of our main responsibilities as a board member. We shouldn't just be hiring people to hire people. We should be vetting everybody that, interviewing and vetting everybody that comes into the district, for our children.
Anthony, what level of importance should the board place on recruiting, hiring, and retaining a diverse teaching staff? What would you do or advocate for as a board member to approach this issue?
I missed the last sentence that you had said there.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. What level of importance should the board place on recruiting, hiring, and retaining a diverse teaching staff? What would you do or advocate for as a board member to approach this issue?
The diversity of the faculty is very important, but I must stress that it's the quality of the teachers that must dictate, but there should be an active role to enlarge the the universe of candidates for our teachers' openings. In other words, we're getting 200 applicants, we should seek ways in the following year to get maybe double that number of candidates and get the best teachers from that group. And I think that is critical, but obviously the number one is the health and safety of the children. But obviously education is what we're all about. So again, it's very important that we get the best teachers we can get. Otherwise, we're just going to fall behind. Again, Newsday reported a couple of months ago that 52% of our students are not reading proficiently, where these other schools, sadly to mention, the more affluent schools, they're at 80% proficiency. So there is a correlation between the money available and how successful a child is in education. And that's why it's critically important, going back to the earlier question, on opting in. If the state is getting the false impression that all our students are really good, we're not going to get the state aid to enhance our students' ability for supplemental educational services. So to maintain the diversity of the teaching staff, to keep them on board, we need to provide any professional development that might be required, or staff that was on the board in the district for more than 10 years. There has to be a continuous managing of the teachers and see where they need further professional development.
Thank you. Gianti, what level of importance should the board place on recruiting, hiring, and retaining a diverse teaching staff? What would you do or advocate for as a board member to approach this issue?
So I think we have to look at what we're offering the candidates that we're looking at. What is the package that we're giving to our teachers? Are we as competitive as the other? Are we competitive as the other districts? Are our salaries competitive? Because if we don't offer enough money to our teachers, we're not going to get quality. We have to look at what we're presenting and what we're actually interviewing. We have to make sure like we're just as competitive with salaries as Syosset, Jericho, Manhasset, because they are pulling the top-notch teachers. And this is something that we should really talk to the teachers about. Hey, what can we do to get better teachers or get qualified candidates? What are we missing in our district? What qualifications should we look for? What class, what candidate would you think of that would be better suited for our district? We need diversity. We have a diverse community. I remember when my oldest started, the demographics was much different than what it is now. We have a lot of students that don't speak English. Do we have teachers that have a second language? Can they communicate with these students? So there's a lot of things that we need to look for in our teachers so that we ensure that they can do what they need to do for our students. And we have to make them happy. It has to be an ongoing collaboration between the board, Vista, the teachers, and making sure that everybody's wants are heard.
Thank you. And Sarah, what level of importance should the board place on recruiting, hiring, and retaining a diverse teaching staff? What would you do or advocate for as a board member to approach this issue?
I think this is a very important topic for discussion. Obviously, we want the best, highest quality teachers, and I think we need to expand our pool of candidates to pull in teachers with more diverse backgrounds. Things like diversity fairs. I know in a neighboring district, their superintendent recently went to an HBCU. So doing that, expressing to people around, not just where we are locally, but expanding that and expressing the great things that we're doing in Valley Stream and make people want to come here and be part of that, I think is really important. When I think of diversity of staff, I think about like mirrors and windows. So like you want as a parent, I want my child to see themselves in their educators, like a mirror, they're reflected back on them, but also windows so that they can see the world beyond themselves. And I think having a diverse staff increases that. But of course, we want to ensure that all of our educators are the best. And then, like you had said, making sure that when we hire these candidates, we're supporting them with a great benefits package, salary, things that they need to be successful here, and really pull the top talent.
Thank you. Now, due to time, it is 8:13 on my watch. The following question will be the last question for tonight's candidate forum before we move to closing statements. Anthony will have the first response. Would you be in favor of armed security guards in Valley Stream 13 schools, similar to other school districts on Long Island?
Would that be armed security guards in the schools or outside the schools?
The question is in Valley Stream 13 schools.
Well, I see there's a big difference between having an armed personnel inside the school as opposed to being on the grounds. There could be some interception of a person carrying a gun to do harm if there is somebody in the parking lot. But then again, if they come in with a high-powered rifle, there's not much that individual can do, armed or not armed. But the most important thing is to have a secure perimeter around the 4 schools that we have in our district to make communication to the authorities, the police that can come in with the cavalry, quote unquote. Having armed personnel inside the schools, I am against. That would be a big mistake. Having armed guards out in the parking lots, it's something to consider. I would need to further research that. But as a general feeling, I would be against having armed guards inside the schools. There's a false belief that if you have a person with a gun, experience with a gun, somehow that's going to make things safer. You can have a false alert, you can have a false reading of how severe or how threatening a situation is, and the person with the guard can make a simple mistake, and then we have innocent children being killed. So I think we should be very hesitant in having guns inside the school. That's not the answer. What is the answer is gun control. What is the answer, or part of the answer, or part of the solution is having things like red flag laws, that if the child is having difficulties and whatnot, or someone in the community is, that person should be further investigated. But I'm not for, the government reaching in and violating your rights. But as far as putting guns inside the school, flat out I'm against.
Thank you. Gianti, would you be in favor of armed security guards in Valley Stream 13 schools, similar to other school districts on the island?
So I would be in favor of armed guards and armed security, because we can do whatever we can implement. We can put in metal detectors, we can do whatever security measures that we can attempt to say, hey, let's protect our kids from danger. But having an armed guard or having somebody like a security that has access to firearms, it's okay, because I'm going to tell you something. As a physical therapist, I went into some of the roughest areas in Brooklyn, and I had to treat patients in the projects where there was drugs, there was gun violence, and guess who went in with me to see my patient? My patient still had to be seen. I could not say no to not seeing a patient. I had to get an armed guard to go in and escort me to see my patient, and that's how I got my job done. If it's going to make the staff feel safer, if it's going to make the students feel safer, then as a district, we need to make sure that our kids feel safe in their schools. It's not to say, hey, that our district is being exposed to violence. No, we're just taking preventative measures, so if something does happen, we're prepared. We don't want to be unprepared. We want to be prepared. And if we can set something up in favor to help keep our schools safe, then we should do it.
Thank you. Sarah, would you be in favor of armed security guards in Valley Stream 13 schools, similar to other school districts on the island?
No. Today, at least, it's a no for me. I support Proposition 2 with all of the increases to security. I think that those things are really important. I worked in a district where there were school resource officers. They were like local police department officers were in the buildings. They were unarmed. I would support something like that. I just think there are too many things. I just would have a lot of questions that would need to be answered. I'm curious to see how it's working out in the other districts. Why those communities were in favor of that and why it was something that was important to them, but for me today, my answer is no.
Thank you. And would you be in favor of armed security guards in Valley Stream 13 schools similar to other school districts on the island?
Well, I am in support of supporting our children and making sure our children are as secure as Fort Knox. Now, none of us up here are security experts. I am in favor of bringing consultants and experts to review all of our, weaknesses. I'm not saying that we have weaknesses, but evaluating our buildings to see where there are weaknesses, whether it's outside, inside, and listening to security experts. And if they come to the board with a proposal and say, this is what you need, then, I think as a board, we would have to consider it. But as far as, I'm not a security expert, so I can't tell you that this is what's going to work and it's not going to work. But I do support securing our children, as much as possible. That's.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our candidates for answering all of the questions that were asked this evening. Candidates will now begin their closing statements in the opposite order of opening statements and continue in the reverse order. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing statements. So, Sarah, whenever you're ready.
So thank you so much, everybody, for coming out or for tuning in from home. Thank you. It was really nice for me to get to know the candidates a little bit better, too. So I just hope that I came across as somebody who's dedicated to the community, someone who can be an advocate for the children in our district. I'm somebody who, it's family first, so for me it's always going to be about the kids. And with that said, I hope that if elected, I'm somebody who can collaborate with the board, bring consensus, and I understand that it really takes a team to make these decisions and enforce these policies, and that's something that I think that we really need. Thank you.
Thank you. Johnson?
So I want to thank everybody, for coming out. This is actually a big endeavor for me. I think I've been on the PTA executive board for the last 2 years, and I've gotten everybody to ask me, what possessed you to go and run for candidacy on the board? And I was like, you know what? I want change. And I think I'm a strong advocate. I'm a very strong advocate for the parents, for the children. I don't back down, so I'm not going to take no for an answer. You have to give me a reason why you're not going to approve something. You have to give me the data, because as my daily job that I do every day is, I can't come up with a reason not to make my patient better. I have to have an outcome. Everyone has to get better, just like our students. All our students need to thrive. They all need to succeed in our district, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have our students flourishing. We have enough resources in our district. We're not utilizing them correctly. And it needs to be reevaluated, and we need to have someone strong in here, and we need a diva parent on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony, your closing statement?
Everything I said tonight and a whole lot more about where I stand on my achievements for the past 3 years and what I would like to achieve in the next 3 years with like-minded trustees, you can all find on my website, apbds.org. I would like to focus on 2 areas. Number one, the budget. There might be a false impression out there that if you do not pass the budget, it's going to negatively impact the educational services provided. That's false. 4 years ago, I financed a team of people to hand out flyers to all 9,000 homes, and we successfully defeated the budget. We were one of 3 districts out of 122 districts on Long Island that Newsday recognized defeating the budget. The whole idea of this tax levy is a false measure. In fact, this year, Dr. LaRocca is looking to increase the spending by 5.5%. even though we've got a 15% increase from the state budget on top of historical raises in the budget for the past 2 years, with $13 million in reserve funds. There were questions about how we're going to address mental health issues tonight. There were questions about what will you do for the high schools. There were questions about what we're going to do for security. For the past 3 years, I asked for cameras, I asked for lighting, I asked for a slew of things that never were acted on that will not cost $700,000 that's being asked for in the proposition. One of the propositions, I think it's Proposition 3. But again, I just want to emphasize that if the budget gets defeated, it has zero impact on education services. That was proved out 4 years ago. Also, if it gets knocked down the second time for the revote, the contingency plan that's on the website right now says that if it gets knocked down, the result is that there won't be 5% spending increase, there'll only be a 2.5% increase in spending. So everything's going to be met, and again, even if it fails twice, it'll have no impact on education. But Dr. LaRocca actually has posted on the website, pupil instruction supplies such as pencils and paper may not be met. She wants the public to believe that a $67 million budget is not going to afford pencils. That's fear tactics, and I really respect that.
Andrew, your presentation.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and thank all my fellow candidates tonight. I mean, because no matter who wins, right? I mean, we're all here to kind of donate our time for the students in the community. So no matter what happens, that's ultimately what tonight is about, right? And I think just going forward, what makes me the best candidate is I care about all the students, all the families, all the parents, not just at Willow, Deaver, Howell, Wheeler. I care about all of you. And I think, because ultimately, if you're elected, you have to work with the rest of the board in a respectful, positive way to advocate for all of you that are voting, all of the students, and all of the teachers. And one of the biggest part of my professional expertise is working with people, collaboration, communication. And I think that if you decide to vote for me, I would be a great asset for the board. So thank everybody, and I thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all the candidates. All right, so folks, voting for the 2024-25 budget and Board of Education elections will take place on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024, at your local neighborhood elementary school in District 13. This is usually the school your child or your neighbor's child attends. If you are unsure or would like to doubly confirm your polling location, please visit District 13's annual election website at valleystream13.com/board-of-education. I would like to thank the candidates for attending, the audience for your questions, and the timekeeper Paula for her help tonight. I would also like to thank the Valley Stream 13 Interschools PTA for allowing Nassau Region PTA to conduct this candidate forum. So thank you everyone, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you, Anthony.